I want to start this off by saying that I'm like in no way upset about this, because as far as Dragon Ball is concerned, whether it's a game, whether it's the show, I've just got to a point where it's like, man, I'm just gonna have to accept this, because if I sit here and I try to just rack my brain for reasons X, Y, and Z, this or that is happening, you're just not gonna find enjoyment. So that being said, I accept this. I don't have a problem with it, but I can also empathize with the people that do dislike it or have a distinct issue with it. So let's go ahead and talk about the Universe 6 Saiyans here. So this would be just kind of like an open discussion thing. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments, vent in the comments down below. I implore you to do so as well. That being said, let's go ahead and give a little brief context to what we're going to talk about today. Universe 6 Saiyans are the topic of discussion, as they always are, really. And mainly because of Kale and Caulifla. These two characters have really, within the span of like the last day in Dragon Ball Super time, literally, honestly, I think in the span of like 8 hours, let's just say 8 hours, just as a random spitball number, because I can't remember exactly how much time they were given to recruit their team before the start of the tournament. It could have been a day, it could have been a couple days. Regardless, in a very, very brief span, these characters went from not even knowing Super Saiyan existed to being able to exert Super Saiyan 2 as a transformation, being able to unlock Berserk, you know, and then master it, and then unlock it again in Kale's case in the most recent episode. And this second time around is stronger than your first time around, but you've mastered that, and they make it a distinct point to say, hey, her energy has literally surpassed its limits. She's more powerful now, so it's not even debatable. That being said, these characters are just reaching tremendous heights, and the one prevailing thing that people use to kind of explain this level of plot contrivance, story convenience that these characters have, this plot armor, really, is the fact that these characters evolved differently, and that race, so the Saiyan race from Universe 6, just is not the exact same. They're not as savage. They didn't have the same upbringing. That shouldn't hold very much merit on power, but let's go ahead and operate on the premise that it does. Let's just say that is the one explainer that we need for their profound potential. Of course, every Saiyan in this series has an incredible amount of potential, whether it's future Trunks, whether it's the kids, whether it's Gohan, who has been touted as having that, Kale and Caulifla and Cabba. All those characters have profound levels of potential. And not even setting aside Goku and Vegeta, who were supposed to have hit their limits ages ago, prior to the Universe 6 tournament, according to Vegeta, right? But they're still progressing. So let's just go ahead and get that out of there. So really what happened, right? If you set aside that thought that these characters just, again, develop differently, so that's why that's not this all-encompassing explainer for this. Really, the real explainer is that they had to find a way to introduce these characters and make them be meaningful additions to this team for this tournament arc. But how could they do that if these characters are so weak? Now, what they could have done was make them achieve these transformations throughout the Tournament of Power. But if that's the only other option that they had at that point, aside from sitting there, spending more time fleshing these characters out, maybe giving, you know, these guys a month to train before the Tournament of Power, which I don't know if I would have liked that, because I do like that, you know, we got less time and got into it. Of course, they took like 7 or 8 episodes or so to get actually into the start of the Tournament of Power, throughout all that recruiting stuff and some of that filler stuff, and, you know, those space poacher guys with Android 17 and all that other nonsense. So I don't know if I would have liked them spending more time on the characters in that regard, but still, they had a few different options, but they chose the easiest, quickest method. And the interesting thing, excuse me, about that is that it led to them actually retconning the Super Saiyan transformation to a degree. Now, of course, as you see with Cabba in the previous Universe 6 tournament, Cabba, whatever, you do actually see that you can achieve Super Saiyan the same way that we always thought you could, and we've known that you could, through sheer anger, through a necessity, things of that nature. But when it came to these characters, since they didn't have a way to give them that, and they had a limited amount of time, once again, they had to just find a, you know, simple way to do it. And it's like, oh, that's where that whole back tingly thing comes in, which is honestly one of the dumbest things ever, right? Because it literally only exists for that sole reason, to give these characters that transformation when they did not have time to put them in this dire scenario where they needed it and things like that. Because even to this day, right, in the last episode, or the last couple episodes where Cabba had his last fight, he had that scenario where he was goaded into transforming into Super Saiyan 2. And you know, it just happens, right? That's just what these Saiyan characters have always done. But Caulifla, again, is able to go SS2. Now, she had a bit of a need because they needed to stop Kale while she was berserking in that episode. But literally, this character goes Super Saiyan 1 and 2 within the span of like 2 minutes. Real Dragon Ball time, right? So that's how crazy this is. And I don't really necessarily have the biggest of issues with that, because I do feel like these characters are already at a point where they should have had it unlocked. And if you look at the history of Dragon Ball, these characters tend to unlock these transformations when they know they exist. Case in point, Gohan going Super Saiyan 2, into the Buu Saga, everybody has Super Saiyan 2. Well, at least, you know, Goku and Vegeta has it, Gohan has it, and stuff like that. And then again, later on in the series, when these characters know that a form exists, they can do it. And that's just always been something, if you look at the history of the show, that has been explained. So again, I don't necessarily have the biggest of issues with that. And of course, we're in a scenario now where it's like, they're really trying to hype up these characters. They're really trying to put these characters over to the point where they're giving them, again, every single possible plot contrivance to allow them to sustain viability throughout the Tournament of Power. What happens when these two Goliaths and Goku and Jiren are fighting? These characters are off hiding. Now, I don't blame them for that, right? I don't blame them for that, but it's just kind of interesting to me that, like, everybody else was just starstruck watching this fight. Nobody, like Frieza, for example, because he literally did it to Cabba. I was so surprised Frieza didn't try to snake those characters, just come out of nowhere and just eliminate them. But okay, fine, Frieza didn't do it, no biggie there. That's not the biggest of issues that I have. But like I said, again, they find ways to remove these characters from these scenarios like that, and afterwards, somehow, miraculously, they get all this power back, and then they approach Goku trying to achieve another level of power again. And again, I don't have the biggest of issues with that because they know that these forms exist. But they made it a point to have Goku literally traverse through every transformation prior to that, and also have characters like Caulifla and Kale reacting to the fact that Goku is using these other transformations earlier on in the tournament, such as the first time that they saw Super Saiyan Blue, which I believe is when they eliminated Bergamo and those guys. That's the first time that they were made aware that that level of power existed. Okay, so now we get to the latest couple of episodes. What do? These characters, again, are trying to achieve another level of power in Super Saiyan 3, which I'm not sure exactly why, but I guess that's about the limits of just regular Saiyan power without mixing in that godly power, which if they pick up God Ki, I don't know what I'm going to do at this point, because that was touted as being something you have to train with a god to be able to achieve. Now, I have always staunchly believed that every character in the series, if they undergo the right amount of training, could achieve a level of godly ki, an awareness of godly ki as well. But like, come on now, they can't just pull that out of their ass out of nowhere. I don't think that that's a thing. So of course, instead, what do? They make them fuse. They literally had Potaras since the beginning of this tournament, and now they jump into this character that is touted as having limitless energy. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, Goku, what do you mean limitless energy? You just got out of fighting Jiren, and you were Ultra Instinct. Are you seriously shocked by their level of power? How powerful is this character? And that's not really the fault of the character at that point. It's more so a fault of faulty writing, because that shouldn't even have existed as a line if you think about it. He shouldn't be surprised at that. Does that mean that that character is stronger than Super Saiyan Blue Vegito versus Merge Zamasu? What about Merge Zamasu? Didn't you say something similar when it came to Merge Zamasu? The Supreme Kai did? He's like, oh yeah, we can't even sense the ends of his power or something of that nature, to paraphrase. And it's like, this character has limitless potential. She's not even Super Saiyan. What are you talking about? So the real question is this going too far with these characters, right? Where will this end? Because again, Cabba said in the last, now I'm back to saying Cabba. Cabba said in the last couple of episodes that, hey, you guys are the real aces for our team. They even went out of their way to eliminate Hit. These stars have aligned for these characters to become the winners of this tournament. Sit there and reflect on this. Gohan and Piccolo have been beaten since the beginning of this tournament. They are so tired. I don't know how they're still in the arena. Android 17 and Frieza will probably be their only real threat. But I'm here to tell you that if Kefla is that powerful, those two characters will most likely get eliminated if they try to go head-to-head with Kefla. Goku's probably going to eliminate himself trying to fight Jiren. This is all speculation, conjecture at this point, but you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Who else is left? Vegeta? I don't think Vegeta can beat Kefla. At this point, limitless energy? Even to the point where Vegeta is like caught off guard by that. He's like, I'm sensing a huge energy next to Kakarot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems like to me, in all seriousness, again, I'm not mad at it. I just accept it for what it is at this point, because really, this isn't anything new to Dragon Ball Super. This has been happening the entire time. Really, it happened in Dragon Ball Z too, in a lot of different scenarios, but nobody likes to talk bad about Dragon Ball Z, but I'm not really going to go too deep into that. But trust me, this has just always been a thing. It's just, the main issue with this is that these characters are so new, and they just seem like everything is handed to them. And again, I love the concept of having female Saiyans. I love the concept of having female Super Saiyans. I don't necessarily love the idea of having like a canonical Broly, if you will, in Kale, but you know, I can empathize with it. I'm perfectly fine with it. But like, in theory, all these things are awesome. Another, you know, fan service fusion between these two female Saiyans that are entirely fan service, everything like that, man. It's awesome to have, but there has to be some sort of structure to it, and that's really what I want to talk about, because I don't necessarily agree with the premise, just kind of get out of here really quick, that we need to spend 30 episodes fleshing these characters out, watching them just struggle through every transformation like they did in Dragon Ball Z, because times have changed, right? I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's perfectly fine even if they did that. But I don't know if I like everything being handed to them. So let me know in the comments your thoughts in regards to this. Again, I don't want this to turn into a I hate Dragon Ball Super because XYZ. You're free to your opinions, but that's not the purpose of this video. So have an awesome day. Thank you guys for the continued support. Let me know your thoughts on Kale and Caulifla. Take it easy, guys.